All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dispatches from the Field, an exciting new initiative from the Explorers Club designed to bring our global community even closer together. We're thrilled to have you here, and thank you for logging in to join us for this online adventure. We want to make sure that we're able to provide a space for our global membership that's spread all around the world to connect on a more regular basis, learn from other members, and have the opportunity for networking. So this is where the magic happens. Let me tell you how it works. So we're going to begin with a 10-minute presentation from our featured speaker, and we're going to follow that with what we call the campfire sessions, which are basically small, intimate-sized breakout sessions where members get to talk and connect with the featured speaker, but connect with each other, share stories, and who knows, even plan new projects. So with that said, welcome. We're glad you're here, and let's dive in. Today's feature speaker is Jeff Blumenfeld. Jeff is the president of Blumenfeld and Associates, LLC, a public relations and special events agency that's based in Boulder, Colorado. They've represented some of the largest outdoor recreation companies in the United States. He also is the editor and publisher of Expedition News, which is a newsletter and website that's been around for 30 years, guiding expeditions. Now for the juicy part, which is what we're going to talk about today. He is the author of Get Sponsored, a funding guide for explorers, adventurers, and would-be world travelers. He also wrote a voluntourism book called Travel with Purpose, a field guide to voluntourism. So let's talk about how you're going to get these 2025 projects funded. Without further delay, I introduce to you Jeff Blumenfeld.
Hey, thanks very much you can hear me, right? You have
I
it?
can.
Testing, 1, 2. Hey, thanks very much. Calling from beautiful Boulder, Colorado, where it's been pretty cold all week. Well, we talked about one of my favorite topics, which is corporate sponsorship for expeditions. And, this is not particularly a new topic. Actually, it dates back to 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And how did he get to be able to do that expedition? Well, he had sponsorship from Ferdinand II and Isabella I. And he went out and discovered the New World. Of course, the New World was already inhabited, but that's another story. And then we move forward to Shackleton, the boss, one of the great explorers of all time, still venerated today. Well, Shackleton needed to raise money as well. He had books, he gave lectures, he had movies, he auctioned picture rights to his expedition. His ship was a museum, he charged admission. He had commemorative postage stamps. He gave 20,000 kilometer glass lantern show tours with glass lanterns all over. He had a phonograph record and he had a book deal. Good old Shaq knew how to raise money. Then we have explorers today that kind of had to raise money for themselves. They have to look like race car drivers. Many traditionalists may poo-poo that, but this is how it's done. You have to deliver value to your sponsors, and often that falls into visual identification. I was just playing around with AI Go Pilot. Well, they got Rolex right. They misspelled Gore-Tex and Fjallraven. So I think the AI needs a little bit more work. So who needs sponsors anyway? Well, you could pay for it yourself. There's a story of Steve Fawcett. Steve Fawcett was a rich financier, and he set world records. He flew around the world nonstop, paid for it himself. He disappeared at the age of 63 in 2007. He was a beloved member of the Explorers Club. So who needs sponsors? You can win a grant. The Explorers Club has grant money. The American Alpine Club has grant money. You can marry rich. You can hit the Powerball. You could not go, of course. That's always an option. Or you can convince a corporate sponsor that you can deliver value to them if they support you. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter where the money is coming from, but rather the goal you hope to achieve. And sponsorship is a means to an end to reach that goal. So, why would a sponsor, of all the things they could spend their money on to market their product or their service, why would they want to sponsor you? Well, you deliver a halo effect. I tell the story of going into a retailer and there's a tag on a parka and it says, this parka went up Mount Everest. That's a halo effect. And where's the average consumer going to go any tougher than the Costco parking lot? Don't laugh. My mother broke her leg in a Costco parking lot. She didn't have an Everest Parker on at the time, but it gives a halo effect to the sponsor's product. Um, you, the sponsor can benefit from the fascination with exploration. And the perfect example of that is the hit book Into Thin Air, based on a tragedy on Mount Everest. But still, people are fascinated by a great expedition story well told. For a sponsor, an expedition sponsorship is cost efficient and it's certainly less costly than advertising. And it helps them generate awareness. And it helps them also, the term is often used, greenwash. It helps them sponsor a worthy cause. And sponsors can also kind of build customer relationship events at trade shows around the explorer who may give a talk. But now, what's the benefit of sponsorship to all of us, to explorers? Well, obviously, a sponsor brings money. You can also, in many cases, tap into sponsor resources like advertising. Their public relations agency may help you promote your trip and help you raise funds for a worthy cause. They can also, sponsors can help you communicate from the field. I like the story. Well, I've been around a while. So when the Mercury astronauts went up, the only way we knew about that was when they rolled a black and white TV into a middle school assembly program, and we watched Dallas Townsend, a picture of him, talk about the splashdown of a Mercury astronaut in the Pacific. Well, that was then, and this is now. The public expects to talk to the explorer, as they're out there on the top of Everest or at Everest Base Camp. They want to hear from the explorer in the field, and certainly sponsors help you get that communications equipment, the Starlink, or pay for a sat phone. So how do you find sponsors? You find them everywhere. Find sponsors everywhere. You look in endemic magazines like Outside Magazine and look at who's advertising in Outside Magazine. They're potential sponsors. You look at the kit, you look at what you're bringing, and you're saying, all right, well, I've got a sleeping bag made with DuPont fibers. Maybe DuPont might be interested in this expedition. I've got a parka from the North Face. I'm wearing it. Maybe the North Face might be interested in sponsoring it. So take a look at your kit and study previous companies that have sponsored expeditions. Easy to do now with Google. You just Google expedition sponsors, and it'll tell you who's active in supporting expeditions. There's also the International Event Group, IEG, sponsorship, and they can help you. They charge a fee, but they can help you kind of identify sponsorships for your trip. And you can see them at sponsorship.com. And the Royal Geographical Society actually has a sponsorship funding database that you can tap into. You don't have to be a member of the RGS, although the RGS is another great organization you might consider. And they also have free planning seminars for your expeditions. You can find sponsors by reading Ad Age online or Ad Week or Marketing Week and look at what marketing plans they're planning. You can shop retailers and look at sponsors and who are the latest companies that are active in exploration. Then you can schlep through trade shows where sponsors have booths to reach retailers. And one great way to reach a sponsor is with a sizzle reel about your expedition. Obviously, for your expedition, you need a logo, You need a website. These are minimums for your trip. And it also was helpful to have a sizzle reel. Now, about 5 years ago, I was on an expedition to Nepal, actually two expeditions. It was a medical mission, and they were looking for sponsorship to cure blindness, a cataract. It was a cataract medical mission, and they were looking for sponsors. They created the sizzle reel, which Felix, if you could play that, it's 2 minutes long.
结果查找我当前人学吧，当前早也让古些说完的，别话兄弟啊，他。忙不来呢，他东也没事的，他军队也把说他每个旅年都几米也把说他忙不的路，就那你的呢。
Well, Mustang, being one of the poorer and more isolated regions of Nepal, has very limited access to medical care of any sort and virtually no access to eye care. When you think about the realm of diseases and the problems they cause, having problems with your eyes, losing the ability to see, has a profound impact on your life. There's not too many doctors you could go to and say, hey, are you willing to fly a bush plane to a remote mountain strip, ride horses for 3 days over 13,000-foot mountain passes, and do surgeries in a remote and dusty, windy region of the Forbidden Kingdom? It's a lot crazy, and maybe even borderline insane. Mustang is like Tibet 200 years ago. And to try and reach the people in this highly dispersed area, living out in remote settlements and camps, was a neat chance for us, living a kind of an insulated life as we do, surrounded by technology, to leave all of that aside and go out with simple tools for the most part and examine so many eyes and help so many people. If we can give people back the gift of sight, we change their lives forever.
Thanks, Felix. As far as I'm concerned, if you have a heart, an expedition, after seeing a video like that, you want to figure out a way to participate in some way, shape, or form. But here's the key. You have to answer the so what rule with your project. What's the significance of the project? How's it differ from a vacation? And an expedition is a trip with a purpose. It has a nobility of cause for that trip. Nobody wants to sponsor the first Oldsmobile ascent of Mount McKinley. Actually, this is an older picture. It's now Denali, but actually the picture may come back into a currency if the mountain has changed in its name. So you want to consider the so what rule. You want to climb Mount Everest. Excuse me, time out. I think it's been climbed. Oh, you want to climb Mount Everest and you're blind? Now that's interesting. So you have to figure out what part of your expedition makes it newsworthy, because sponsors want to see that there's a chance that they'll get some sort of news coverage as the base of that. You'll also want to build confidence in your abilities to carry this off successfully. You want to convince your sponsors that you know how to write, that you're good at photography, or you're bringing people on your trip who have skills in that you're a good public speaker, that you know how to use the web, that you've got social media skills, that you got lots of followers on your expedition. And maybe you have podcast skills as well. So this is key. You want to convince sponsors that you've got the goods, that this isn't your first rodeo. And then let's talk briefly about visual identification. Next slide. This is Barbara Hillary. Barbara Hillary decided she wanted to go to the North Pole. She wanted to ski to the North Pole. And she managed to raise $50,000 to ski to the North Pole. And one way to do that was to promise sponsors visual identification. Well, I would consider this a big home run, because this is a story about Barbara Hillary in the New York Times with visual ID for Buck Knives, Smart Wool at the bottom of the screen, and Cool, which is a clothing manufacturer. I would consider this a home run for her. Barbara Hillary is now written up on Wiki because she was the first proven African-American woman to ski to the North Pole. And then when she skied to the South Pole, this is the last kilometer we're talking about, she became the first African-American woman to ski to the North Pole and the South Pole. And that she broke a record for that. And she was just a normal woman with bad knees. So with Barbara Hillary, this is an example of the importance of visual identification. Inside the tent, in sleds, that's really what's critical here. And of course, that brings us to social media exposure. You want to credit sponsors through social media. And the theory here is you want to underpromise and overdeliver for your sponsors, working on the assumption that this is not your first and only expedition, that you want to go back to the well in subsequent years. So it's important to be savvy with Twitter and Blue Sky and Threads and LinkedIn and logos on your homepage and so on. And then you want to emphasize the PR value of the trip and perhaps extend the PR value of the trip. I'll tell you a quick story. If you put the map up, Felix. So we go back to 1986 with an expedition to the North Pole. And at that time, they packed memorabilia into a plastic sewage pipe and they left it at the North Pole. And I was working on this and I said at the time, what's going to happen to the sewage pipe? They just left it at the pole. Well, the pole's going to break up and, we don't know where it's going to go. So the sponsor offered a $5,000 reward for its safe return. And it was found 3 years later. And I'll never forget the name of this place, Bloody Foreland Point in the Republic of Ireland. It was found. It was brought back to New York. It was presented to the Explorers Club, and it's still in the closet outside the boardroom of the Explorers Club. And the sponsor, at this time it was DuPont, received exposure for this expedition 3 years later. So that was a kind of a home run when for the sponsor and for the team. So when you're negotiating, remember that in your contract with the sponsor, you want to consider liability coverage, appearance days, category exclusivity. Sponsor doesn't want to know that there's another sleeping bag manufacturer on your same trip, your payment schedules, termination clauses, and photo rights for the trip. And we're almost done here. Remember, after the expedition, you're not done. You want to provide an immediate wrap-up report to your sponsor. You want to evaluate product performance of how the products performed on the trip. You want to submit to the sponsor PDFs of the publicity that was achieved. You want to visit the sponsors, meet with the employees, meet the actual guy on the production line who made the product that saved your life or allowed you to exist in extreme conditions. And say thank you to the sponsor over and over again. Convince them the best thing that they ever did in their marketing program was sponsoring them. And again, you want to underpromise and overdeliver. So thanks. I think we're breaking out into campfires at this point. Are there any questions?
Jeff, thank you. Thank you so much for providing such a comprehensive roadmap for how we navigate this landscape of sponsorship, from how we differentiate what our projects are so that we can really stand out, to just the practical next steps and communication that you really laid out for us. So thank you so much. For those of you joining us, please make sure that you take a look at the chat so that you can also get access to Jeff's email. Highly encourage you to pick up his book. There's all kinds of really good tips in there as to how to be able to proceed as well. For those of you that are joining us streaming, thank you so much for logging in from wherever in the world you are. We look forward to keeping you posted and seeing you next month. For the rest of us online, it's now time, as Jeff noted, for us to transition to the campfire sessions. So again, how this is going to look is we're going to break out, we're going to break out into randomized groups. Please make sure that you introduce yourself, give everyone the chance to introduce themselves, and just talk about what it is that you've learned, what it is that you're trying to get sponsored, and certainly make some room for when Jeff comes into your campfire group. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions there too. So with that, hang tight one moment and we will switch into the campfire sessions.
Look forward to seeing many of you during